Welcome to the Two Pages Project, another part of the Coil Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Rob Steele. If you'd like to become a published author with us, stay tuned after the show for a vast majority of the details. But let's get right to this week's story, written by, me. We're going back to the mystery genre with another adventure of Lieutenant Cooper Wright in His Better Half. I'd never been to the Magic Club. A few years ago, my daughter got the family into watching TV shows about debunking magic tricks. Since then, magic's lost a lot of its allure. People who do magic clubs don't have the big budget of a David Copperfield or a Chris Angel, and I haven't really cared for any magician's charisma or showmanship since Doug Henning. Yes, that makes me old, but it also makes me experienced in figuring things out. That's why people call on Cooper Wright when a murder occurs. Well, that, and I'm a homicide lieutenant. Tonight at the Magic Club, a new tour was supposed to kick off for a guy named, get this, Gene Splicer. I really hope that's a stage name. The story, as it's gotten back to me so far, is that this Splicer guy was supposed to saw a woman in half. Nothing most of us haven't seen before. Maybe he thought the chainsaw would be enough of a twist. The general premise hasn't changed much in the past 100 years or so. Get a planted audience member to volunteer, put her in a box with compartments, head out one end, fake legs go out the other. Saws vary from hand to power, but it's really the same trick. Mr. Splicer's other variation was supposed to add some fake blood to make people think, oops. The problem was, there was a lot of blood. The chainsaw doused the first 3 rows in blood. Of course, the audience thought it was an act. That is, until he separated the 2 boxes and the metal plates that are allegedly there to keep the 2 halves from being seen gave way and released, well, let's just say the stage was a mess and several audience members added their own flourishes. This is easily the worst looking and smelling murder scene I have ever worked. I'm not the least bit envious of the CSI team. Thankfully, a cursory examination is the only thing I need. We have the murder weapon. Gene Splicer is backstage, in custody, of course. The question is, do we have a murderer? Did he do it on purpose or did someone rig the trick? The best place to start is with technically Eugene Spicer, but seriously, can you blame me for wanting to change that? At maybe 5'8" and maybe 150 pounds, at best, the so-called magician was hardly an imposing figure. Eugene is horrible enough, but Spicer? That guy in D.C. has pretty much ruined the name. And since I end my act by sawing a woman in half, Gene Splicer works. Doesn't it? It might have worked better if you could put her back together. Why don't you walk me through what happened? The act was going fine. I had Lucy pick out an audience member to get bisected. We brought her on stage and put her in the box. I told Lucy that since tonight was the opening of the tour, she should put in a few extra blood packs. I just thought she overdid it. I mean, yeah, during rehearsals, there's a scream to go with it. That's why I use a chainsaw. It adds to the effect and I don't have to hear the screaming. So when the lady screamed, I didn't think anything of it. This lady? Are you telling me she wasn't a plant? Only amateurs use a plant. I use fresh, normally I say victims here. I guess that's not the best way to go tonight. No, it isn't. I don't even know who she is. Should I contact her family for condolences? I suppose that's a good gesture, but his story sounds so contrived. Mr. Spicer, the woman was Susan Gow. You're telling me you didn't know who she was? Susan Gow. He seemed to process the name, running it through his head before he had a realization. Oh no, not Al's wife. Well, there goes my career. Al Gow, as Mr. Spicer knows, is the owner of the Magic Club. Al wanted me to kick off the tour here. I got my start here, but I've never met Sue. She was never here when I was. I talked to her on the phone once, but But, Eugene broke down in tears. That's probably all I was going to get out of him for now. I left a uniformed officer with him while I went to find my other suspects, Al Gow and the stagehand,
Lucy Paris, and yes, that's my real name.
I'm all in favor of women with a bit more than skin on the bones, but it's odd to find a magician's assistant that looks like she can outweigh the magician. And not just in the breast department.
Jean told me to put extra blood packets in the box. Wanted to make a big splash. Of course, when her innards broke through the plates of the box, that made a splash. Actually more of a squishy thud, but...
I raised my hand to hopefully stop a further description. What made you pick Miss Gow as your volunteer?
Oh, I never pick them randomly. It's always the same, really. From the right side, 2 rows back, 3 seats in. She seemed nice. Not that I really knew her or anything. Just long enough to escort her to the box. It's not like I got the chance to know her inside and out. Of course, now I know her inside better than her.
Stop. Really? Is that necessary?
Sorry, I'm using my sense of humor to keep you from thinking about it. Kinda gruesome, huh?
I leave Miss Paris with another uniformed officer. Finding Mr. Gow might not be terribly hard. I understand he lives in an apartment upstairs from the club, but this might not be the best time. As I find the stairs, I'm greeted by a bouncer, Patrick McBaird, who tells me the same thing. Not the best time. My badge might be hanging on a lanyard around my neck, but I hold it up anyway. I need to speak to Mr. Gow. I'm trying to find out what happened here tonight. I can give him a few minutes, but I need to talk to him soon. What can you tell me about Susan Gow? Not a whole lot, really. We just call her Runaround Sue. You know, like the song. Yeah, and now I'm going to have it running through my head the rest of the day. Thanks. I take it she slept around? I think the only one she didn't sleep with here was Mikey, the bartender. And that's 'cause he's gay. Yes, she slept with me too, a few months ago. You know, for someone who sleeps around that much, you'd think she'd be better at it. Part of my mind wants to know more details about that. The better part of my mind briefly wonders if the details of sex are relevant to the case and decides it isn't. Do you know if she slept with anyone recently that disagreed with her? There should be a better way of phrasing that. I just can't think of it right now. I just made it sound like she ate some bad seafood. McBaird just shrugs. I know there was a delivery guy here earlier. The usual guy who delivers Chinese from Lady Tao's down the street. Come to think of it, I don't think she's banging him. If she wants a nerdy Chinese guy, she's married to one, know what I mean? He realizes that it's probably time for me to talk to Mr. Gow. He stands aside and motions for me to go up. When I reached the top of the stairs, I was expecting a door into a separate apartment. There wasn't a door. There wasn't even really a wall. It just opened up into a living room with a large fish tank aside the stairs in place of a wall. As I make my way up, through the tank, and beyond the obligatory plastic scuba diver and treasure chest, I see the despondent shape of Mr. Gow. He's sitting in a recliner staring off into space. McBaird's description is rather apt. Nerdy Chinese guy in a Green Lantern t-shirt. Yes, I know who Green Lantern is. It's an oddly lit room, though. The light seems to be the same color as his shirt. It creates odd shadows on his face. Casts an air of despair around him. I feel a twang of guilt. He probably heard my discussion with McBaird. I heard you talking about my wife with Patrick, Lieutenant. I did just think that, didn't I? I knew she slept around. I know that I'm a suspect. I have to be, don't I? The husband of the philanderous wife. Does it help if I tell you that I knew? I could make her smile with my petty magic tricks. That's all I cared about. He flicked his wrist and a full house of hearts appeared in his hand. He doesn't even really have sleeves to hide those in. It's a nice trick. And I knew I couldn't satisfy her in bed, but I never wanted her to be dead. I lived for her smile. That's what made me happy. He turned to me with a look of pure despair. Please find out why my wife died. I don't even have words. I simply nod and go back down the stairs. I pass McBaird, who looks thoroughly embarrassed, his complexion almost matching his ginger hair. I assign another uniform to accompany the burly bouncer and put in a call to Detective Manny Vasquez back at headquarters and have him run the names of my suspects. Spicer, Paris, the Gows, Mr. McBaird, even Mikey the bartender, just in case anything pops up. I spend the next hour talking with witnesses and other club employees. Nothing gives me anything useful. Manny, however, calls me back with the most useful lead I've had so far. I was going over the financials and I found something very interesting. Earlier today, Mr. Gao wired $15,000 to an overseas account. I couldn't trace it beyond that, but about 20 minutes ago, Mr. Spicer's account got a $15,000 deposit. I thank Manny. He's very good at this stuff. If that doesn't sound like Mr. Gao paid off Mr. Spicer to kill his wife, I'll eat my hat. Okay, I'm not wearing a hat, but I still think it's time to make an arrest. $15,000 is a bit much to pay someone for one show. The DA is going to love trying another murder for hire case. As I reach the door to the room where I left Mr. Spicer, I notice the officer I left outside is gone. This is not a good sign. I open the door to the dressing room and find Officer Gold tied to the chair that was, until recently, supporting a grief-stricken magician. I call for more backup to untie Gold and quickly make my way back up to Mr. Gao's apartment. McBaird and Officer Conti are still stationed at the bottom of the stairs. I mistakenly think this is a good sign. The only way in or out of the apartment is through this stairway, but at the top of the stairs is an empty apartment. No one in any of the rooms and no furniture large enough to hide a body in it. Where the hell did they go? I go to check on my last suspect, the one I'm not positive was in on it, and in what can only be described as a complete lack of surprise, Officer Brand, whom I had left with her in her dressing room, had no idea where Ms. Lucy Paris had disappeared. I start to place another call to Manny when my phone rings. It's Manny calling me. Boss, they're gone. What's gone, Manny? The accounts. I was gathering more information on them and they all disappeared. Lots of the information on your suspects disappeared too. I had just gotten the information on Ms. Paris's police record for hacking. I guess she's the one making the accounts disappear. Our computer records are disappearing too. That's why I printed everything. We can recreate it, but it'll be hard to hold up in court since the original files are disappearing. Damn. Evidence gone, suspects gone. I'm half expecting a call from the coroner telling me the body is gone too. I guess the only thing to do at this point is issue an APB out for all of them. As I leave the Magic Club, I notice the poster for the Gene Splicer tour. At least we have a picture of our suspect that they didn't take with them. That's when I notice the other cities on the poster. They don't match up. There is no Winchester, Delaware, or Exeter, Maryland, or Wallington, Pennsylvania. But the cities do form an acronym. We weren't here. There is something more going on here. This was too elaborate for it to just be a simple murder for hire. But for now, I don't even know where to look. The further adventures of Cooper Wright will be in forthcoming episodes, once I've written them. Although I would rather make podcasts out of stories you wrote. That is the purpose of the show, after all. If you'd like to become a published author with us, that's what we're here for. I know it's hard to get published unless you've been published, which makes no sense. So what we do is we'll take your short story, publish it first as an ebook on the website, then we'll turn it into an audiobook for the podcast, and when we've got enough stories, we'll turn it into an actual book that you can buy at a store. Yes, you could get money out of this. See, there's an incentive. If you'd like to submit a story, email it to contact@twopagesproject.com. We will be open to any type of story you want to send us, not just mysteries, but sci-fi or fantasy, historical fiction, western, melodrama, whatever you want to write. Just submit your story for the audiobook treatment and publishing on our website. Don't forget to use the new email address, contact@twopagesproject.com. And don't forget to pass the show around to your friends because it's free and it's fun. Now, there are a few rules on the website. They're very simple. Check that out, twopagesproject.com. You know what? Pass that around too. We would like to thank iTunes, the Google Play Store, and the Happy Hour Network for passing the show along. And don't forget to follow all the Coil Entertainment Network shows on Pinterest and YouTube as well. And if you're interested in being part of the audiobook process, use that same email address, contact@twopagesproject.com. So, until next week, be safe and keep writing.